Stay tuned, stay tuned, stay tuned. I'm here with the coach, John Brent.
Man, I'm here with the vet, Mr. Ian Griffin, and it's getting to be boo time. Spooky spook time.
Spooky. Ooh. So we're going to cover a little bit thing called Halloween. And we're just going to talk about some of our things that we did in the past, and we're going to talk about some thoughts that we have on Halloween itself, what comes to mind and such. I remember as kids, man, I lived out on that little lake that nobody lived on, and we would go around all 8 houses in a mile, and like 3 people would answer the door. And before that, I lived in a trailer park, and times have changed, Coach. I will say this. I remember one person, she was a teacher. She wouldn't give us candy. She cooked hamburgers. I'd get a hamburger patty.
Well, I need to go there. Just saying.
And so times have changed.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in a neighborhood like Kesterson, Milligan, and there was a lot of people like Kyle Marshall, David Busby, Buffy Blasking, the Applegates, Damon Davis, Greg Malloy was over there, Jason Green, Rafe Green was over there. So there was a whole lot of kids that we would get together and hit those Parkland, Milligan, Kesterson, all the way up to like the Episcopal Church, all the way over to Pit Stop, all the way back to where my mom's house is. And it was always a fun time. I do remember there was a number of years that I was the same person because we didn't have a lot of money. I was Evil Knievel.
Yeah, Evil Knievel.
I had the whole Evil Knievel.
Remember you had the mask that you couldn't breathe out of?
Dude, I had it. And I had the white suit and everything. I bet my mom still has it.
I had the guy, people won't even remember this guy. He was called Space Ghost. He was like purple and green, and I had his mask, and that was like a cool thing. So
yeah, that was. What was some of the coolest? Do you remember some places that you went that you got like cool candy, or like you said, that person had a hamburger, but
yeah, that person had a hamburger. And as a kid, when we moved out to the lake, I was in 2nd grade, and we'd roam the lake.
Yeah,
nobody had cool crap out there. You didn't even walk down the driveway because it seemed like it's a half a mile, but it was probably about 100 yards down that driveway, and you was like. You didn't watch scary movies by the time, so.
I always tell the best Halloween every year was going to Julia Truitt, Charlie and Julia Truitt's house, Tim Truitt and John Truitt and all them, because instead of giving candy, she had a bowl of quarters.
Oh.
So as a kid, you couldn't scoop, but you could reach in and get as many as you could and put it in your bag. And every single year, my mom, after we would do everything over at my area, would take me because we were friends with them. And I always just thought that was cool. Could you get $8, $10, whatever you could get?
Cool.
But there was no scooping. It was just grabbing, and that was it. I always thought that was the coolest thing. And Halloween are memories. A lot of things that we do as kids are memories. And she passed just a few years ago, and I remember John Truitt used to come down here to White House, and I'd see him at a local business, and I remember telling him that story. And he said, "You know what? She used to love to do that."
So one of the things that I remember, and it's reference Halloween, it's not actually Halloween, but I used to like to watch scary movies.
Did you really?
I loved them. I'll watch them all day long.
Bro, I'm not a big fan of that.
I can sit there and go, whoa, yeah. And whereas my German side of the household, if the door creaks, they're under a pillow, and like I'm having nightmares.
I'm with her.
And I'm like this. I'm like, we're watching that sucker all the way through. So anyway, in 4th grade, there was a movie. Some of y'all may know it, called Halloween, came out. Mm-hmm. And I was in school, and I remember the kids talking about it. And my dad worked at nights when the power went out. He'd have to go out to Texas Egg and crank the emergency generators up. Well, the power happened to go out because of a storm. And Mom goes, well, we got no power in the house. Let's go over next town over and go watch the movie Halloween. I heard it might be good. And I remember hearing all the kids talk about it. I watched that movie. Oh, my God. My mom had her hands over my eyes like this right here. I was shaking in the dang thing. And then when we got home, it stormed really bad. And so we stayed downstairs in the bedroom together because my mom was kind of scared.
Yeah.
And my dad forgot to take his house keys, and she had locked all the doors. And he came and scratched on the freaking...
let me in?
To let me in. She was about to shoot him with a shotgun. Oh, my God. That movie caused some drama in our household, I can tell you that.
Well, I'm trying to think. My dad, downtown, he was part of Hazelwoods at that time when I was really young. And so downtown, the businesses would stay open for Halloween. Now, I think they still do now. Just a few years ago they did. And kids could walk the sidewalks, and, they would be out front with certain things. So I remember seeing, like my dad and Jim, what was his name? Jim Wilson, Joey Wilson's dad, and the Mavens were always there, the Parkers, the Sewells. the Palmore. There's like all these, these hometown businesses. B&S Hardware was one that, even though they were there all day, it seemed like they were always there for the kids. They were always there for things like that. So like I wrote before, the greatest little town in the greatest country in the world, of course, is Pittsburgh, Texas. But just some of those memories of Halloween and going through the neighborhoods and seeing those people. Now, I would say this, now that you're older and you've had kids, you've taken your kids at places, and sometimes kids come to your house. So what are some of the things that...
So I will say this, being in the military and traveling around, soldiers get in the barracks and they don't get to do family things much. So whenever a unit will have a function, some of these soldiers go all out, especially when it has kids involved, because they're not around kids much, and they miss that. And so Halloween and Christmas time, you'll see kids come out Christmas time dumping money like, you're a young single soldier. He goes, oh, they need it. Halloween, they'll come out and get in all sorts of garb and everything. So they'll do a trunk or treat normally. It's where the first time I saw trunk or treat.
Yeah.
And I've lived in some communities also where they walk with a lantern light and all this other such, and then they go trick or treating along with the lantern light, and they'll all pull together. But I've seen a lot of families go full tilt on Halloween, and where the mom the grandmother that's probably in her early 50s, she dresses as a witch and she looks like she could be in a movie with that on.
Yeah.
And the husband has everything buzzing every second you move around in the yard, and I mean they really go all out.
Yeah, there's a lot of adults that do Halloween parties. I've never been one of those that thought it was, go these big, huge Halloween parties. But there's people that plan those things for months, and it's like a huge deal. I just never done that. I always thought it was cool when I lived in a neighborhood to get candy and have it set up for kids to come to the door and the trick or treat and all that, because it just kind of reminded me of my childhood. And then seeing my kids, when we lived in a neighborhood in White House, they could just go.
Yeah.
And it was just cool that they'd have their costume on. They'd come back with all this candy, and it would be cool because I'd always pick out the candy I wanted. But it was just, I think Halloween is just one of those things where it's a kid thing. The older you get, it's still from me watching the kids.
Yeah.
And still thinking about the memories of when I was a kid and my mom always taking us.
Did you ever go to the ag building across the railroad tracks?
Yes.
When they had the carnival, and that was pretty well laid on in our
I
hometown.
did.
Small town, it's
Yeah.
an old ag building, and they would lay on this deal where they'd have a little haunted house for the older kids. They'd have
I
musical
swung at
chairs.
somebody in there one time.
Say again?
I swung at somebody because they cranked up a chainsaw.
Yeah.
It scared me to death.
Well, nowadays there are some people that make a business. That's the only
Yeah.
thing they do for the month of October. They make all their pennies right then. They even give you a notice. Don't come in here if you have heart problems. Don't come in here if you scare easy.
Well, believe me, I haven't been to a haunted house in 25 years and I ain't going. Nope.
I would go in a heartbeat.
Something wrong with you.
Oh yeah, I'd eat that up.
I'd take a 9 with me.
But one thing I do want to discuss though is during the time when we were kids, there were you'd hear stories about people with razor blades and apples and things of that nature, and they say the deal now is the fentanyl, and they actually released pictures of certain candy
Isn't
like
that
that,
crazy?
and that's a shame, and because what that resorts us to is going to houses that we know.
Yeah.
And which might not be a bad thing, but it's a shame that we live anywhere in society, no matter what country it is, that we should be able to go in any place in our neighborhood.
When we were growing up,
and just go.
you started hearing about those things. You never really saw them, but you heard about it. But where, to me, it kind of goes back to the acetaminophen in New York, when the Tylenol bottles were getting spiked with cyanide.
Yeah.
After that, it seems like copycats of different things that ended up being part of Halloween too. It's like it just kind of has been part of the society for the last 30 years, I guess.
And that's a shame,
It
because
really is.
they do say that Halloween has overtaken Christmas in the most merchandise sold.
Well, I'm tell you what, we spend none. We don't spend anything, maybe a couple bags. We don't even, well, out here where we are now.
Yeah,
we don't-
nobody's coming up here.
No, if they come up here, we've told them to come.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like at our house, we lived on a hill, and there, by the time I get up the hill, I might get 3 people at the most. So if you came to my house on Halloween, you get like
get a bunch.
You get a whole bunch, because I know 4 is about it, and I'm dumping everything in
Yeah,
there so I can close the
good.
door and go to bed, as soon as possible. So anyway.
So last question before we go.
Yep.
What would be your favorite Halloween candy to get?
That's kind of crazy because I see kids nowadays. They even text, go to so and so's house. They're giving out full Kit Kat bars, full ones. You're like, whoa, I don't know.
I don't know. I'm still old school. The yellow Mr. Good bar, the red cracker.
The crackle.
And the Hershey and the dark Hershey. And if just get hands of those, I'm good.
Yeah, those are good. I like those.
Yeah.
But I will say, as we've gotten older, I would just like a Bob for apple or something.
To be honest with you, brother, I'm in prep right now. I take a bacon cheeseburger with fries for mine. Wherever that person is that's giving out
She didn't
burgers.
put no bacon on there. It was, but anyway. So,
all right, brother.
So, hope you have a happy Halloween tonight.
Yes.
And all the best. And
Watch
may
for
everybody be safe.
fentanyl, people.
Yeah, watch that crap. We don't need no little ones getting hurt
Oh, my gosh.
over some stupid crap.
Right.
So check that stuff out, parents. Anyway, so from the coach,
To the vet.
stay tuned, stay tuned, stay tuned.